everyone, my name is Caitlin and welcome back to my channel. So welcome to a new series I'm doing called... Okay, I don't really know what it's gonna be called yet. I was thinking something along the lines of like love stories or ship analyses or something like that. I probably should have figured this out before I started filming, but nonetheless, maybe you guys can help me in the comments down below with a name for this new series. But I came up with this idea for this series a couple years ago actually, and then gave up on it when I thought it was too hard, and then I was reminded of it the other day on Discord, and then I was like, hey, I should give that another try because that was a good idea. But the concept is basically I take a ship, it doesn't have to be from Disney Channel, this one just happens to be from Disney, and we go over their entire story arc. And so I thought we'd start off with Gastina because I love them con todo mi corazón, and also because I love Soy Luna, and so I thought I'd pick a secondary ship from the show instead of doing one like Luteo because then I would just be here all day. So please leave your recommendations in the comments down below for which ship you would like me to cover next. Preferably not one from a telenovela just so I can get a little bit of a break next time, but like also if you guys want me to cover Simbar, like I can do that. And I also just want to stress that this is in no way a substitute for watching the show. This is more for people who have already watched Soy Luna and want to have like a little walk down memory lane, or if you're thinking about watching the show and you want to have a little incentive into watching it, then maybe this will give you some, although it will also give you lots of spoilers. I think the only other disclaimer I have is that this show has like over 200 episodes, and so while yes, I did write down every single exchange that they had throughout the show, which took 3 days might I add, I am not going to be going over every little thing. We're just going to cover like the main events so that we're not here all day like I said earlier, but I'm excited. We're going to separate it into 12 chapters, and so some of them are a lot longer than others. I just kind of went based off of like story arcs and whatnot. And so yeah, with all that being said, let's just jump right into it. So chapter 1 we're going to be calling The Beginning. So Gastina's story starts before the show even starts. We find out that Gaston is like the most popular guy in school, and so he has lots of admirers, including Nina, who is this very shy, nerdy girl who also has a crush on Gaston, but feels like she is invisible to him.
Menos mal, porque es un poco chico imposible, igual que sus amigos.
So the first interaction we see between the two of them is in episode 6 when they're in the lockers at the Jam and Roller and Nina accidentally drops one of her books, and so he picks it up for her and comments on how like, oh, this is a good book, I like it. But she's basically like left speechless and doesn't say anything and practically runs away, to the point where Gaston is like, oh, hey, you forgot your book, and then she's like, oh, thanks, and then runs away again. And then we don't hear about them for a bit because Gaston and Delphi become skating partners, and so he's busy with that, but then Gaston is reminded of Nina's existence when he overhears her recommending a lyric to the roller band, and he comments on how like she's a really great writer.
Somos uno, una sola voz que canta esta canción, que siente que crecerá.
¡Qué buena frase! Se nota que la tenés clarísima con la escritura.
And then the next day at school, he sees her and compliments her on her writing style and said she should be a lyricist, and so that was freaking adorable. And so things are looking good for Nina. She's finally getting some attention from Gaston, who she's apparently had a crush on for so long, up until Flor makes her appearance. And so this is Mateo's cousin, who Gaston starts to kind of catch feelings for. And so Nina is now left sad as she sees them interacting, but at least we got a good scene with her and Pedro out of this, where they both like bond over the fact that they both like somebody who doesn't reciprocate their feelings. And so in case you needed a reminder of the existence of Pedro and Tamara, there you have it. And so this brings us to chapter 2, in which I am calling A Friendship is Born. And so Nina and Gaston's friendship really starts to blossom after they both take photography as an elective. And in the first class, Nina is called upon to answer a question, and then Gaston ends up finishing her train of thought.
No sé, pero creo que es como escribir con imágenes.
Sería algo así como contar una historia congelada.
Describir lo que pasa en un instante.
Es un concepto muy lindo al que llegaron, chicos. Muy poético. Los felicito.
Gracias.
They have their first real conversation after they're both in the park taking pictures for their class, but then Gaston sees Nina spying on her parents, and so he asks her what she was doing, and so this leads her into explaining the concern she has about seeing her parents together, and they talk about that for a little bit. And they also talk about how similar Nina's photos are to the ones that Gaston took, and they have a really great moment until it is unfortunately interrupted by a phone call from Flor. And then this brings us to one of my absolute favorite Gastina moments, at least from season 1, and so it happens after Nina is embarrassed because of her parents performing in the open, and so Gaston finds her in the locker rooms and tries to cheer her up a bit, and then he ends up checking on her again in the next episode just to see how she is after their last conversation, and it shows how great of a guy he is, and I love them both so very much.
¿Seguís de incógnito?
¿Cómo?
Si seguís mal por Extreme Singers.
Ah, sí, eso. Me gustaría ser un ñandú.
¿Un ñandú? ¿Por qué?
Sí, son de esas aves que se pueden esconder abajo de la tierra. Todavía no me puedo recuperar, pero son los papás que tengo.
And then this isn't really that relevant, but in episode 22 is when Nina receives her first message from Roller Track, which is Gaston's screen name, and she thinks it's Pedro at first, which I just think is super interesting, especially considering the moment that they shared a couple episodes earlier, and it makes me wonder if they maybe had something more planned for them, but unfortunately we'll never know. And so back to Gastina. This brings us to our second photography class plotline, in which the teacher pairs them up together on a project to take portraits of one another, and he notes that they have a very similar style, so that's why he thinks that they'll work well together, and then Nina ends up getting the perfect picture of Gaston after she gets him to start thinking about Felicity. On to chapter 3, in which I'm calling the Dark Ages Part 1, and they may not seem that dark, but I'm mainly just calling them that because they didn't really get much development in this span of episodes. So Nina and Gaston have been talking online using their screen names, and so they don't know who the other person is, and things are going great, up until Delphi finds out that Gaston is Roller Track, and so she uses this to her advantage and gets him to believe that she is Felicity, and then they start dating. And then this next moment isn't really that relevant, but I just had to mention it, and so in episode 28, Amber is hosting this event at the Roller, and so Luna gives Nina this makeover for this event, which really just includes her wearing a bunch of bracelets, but nonetheless, Gaston still says wow when he sees her walk in.
Wow. ¿Y eso?
Qué hermosa que está.
¿Qué?
No, nada. Está muy buena la decoración.
Sí, la verdad que sí.
And then a few episodes later, we finally get to see the photo that Gaston took of Nina for their assignment, and he says it's the best photo he's ever taken. But then the first round of the international competition takes place, and so this puts a hold on Gastina, as this is when Nina meets Xavi. But on the right side is also when Gaston finally finds out that Delphi has been lying about being Felicity, and he breaks up with her. And so this brings us to Gaston player era, which is honestly the best era of Gaston, if you ask me. And so basically, after breaking up with Delphi, he's like, I'm gonna play the field, and I'm gonna date all the girls. And so he hits on Jim, he hits on Yam, and he even goes as far as to go on a date with this one girl and call her Felicity by mistake. Also, another little mini moment that I just had to mention a couple episodes later is when Nina helps Gaston after he gets swarmed by fans after the Open, and she helps him get rid of them, and it's a cute moment. I had to mention it.
Sabrina, gracias, me salvaste. No está bueno ser popular entre las chicas.
¿No? Pero si puedes elegir con quién salir.
A mí me gustaría salir con una sola persona. Debería invitarla, ¿no?
Sí. Si la tenés cerca, no lo dudes.
Bueno, me voy antes que se den cuenta. Gracias,
And then things really take a turn in episode 50 after Nina finally agrees to meet Roller Track in person, but then she gets there, realizes it's Gaston, and she hides so he doesn't see her. And so that was pretty disappointing, but also, like, at least now she knows that Roller Track is Gaston, and so that's something. Alright, on to chapter 4, in which I am calling the Hunt for Felicity, and this is quite a long chapter, and so get ready. So after Gaston has now been stood up by Felicity, he is more determined than ever to figure out who she is. So his first plan is to dedicate a song to her at the Open, and so once Nina sees this performance, she posts a photo in thank you to him. But she does not notice, for some reason, that Tino is literally in, like, front and center of this photo, taking a picture of her. And so I'm just like, these two kids are supposed to be, like, the smartest in their school, like, top of their class, but first of all, how has Gaston not figured out it's Nina by now? It's pretty obvious. And then also, how did she do that? Like, how did she not see Tino literally right in the middle of the photo? Like, come on, do better. So Nina tries to get Luna's help to delete the photo from Tino's phone before Gaston can see it, but then Amber ends up getting the phone first, and so Nina claims defeat. She is, like, this close to telling Gaston that she is Felicity, but then Delphi comes in, interrupting them, telling Gaston that they weren't able to get the photo as Tino destroyed his phone. And so that sucked. But also, we did get a really good Gastina moment at the beginning of this scene, because it's when Nina skates into the locker room and he catches her.
¡Ayúdame! Ay, gracias. Sí.
Very cute. All right, moving on. Then this brings us to the webcam date, one of the best moments from season 1, 100%. And so Nina agrees as Felicity to meet with Roller Track over webcam, and so she gets Luna and Mora's help to come up with the disguise, and they get ready for the date. And so Gaston is also stressing because he's got like a zit or a sty on his eyelid. I don't know, it doesn't really look like either of those things, but that's all I could come up with. It's like a white thing on his eye. I don't know, but it was hilarious. And so Mateo helps him out by giving him some shades and also a vest because it's Mateo. He's got to complete the look. So they have their date. It's going good. Gaston is a little bit suspicious, but other than that, it's a good time up until Luna falls into view, and Gaston and Mateo are both left shocked, and she quickly disconnects the call.
Mira, la verdad es que estaba muy nervioso y él se ofreció a acompañarme.
¿De verdad? Yo también estaba nerviosa.
No se te ve para nada nerviosa.
Bueno, es que hay un abismo infinito entre lo que uno siente y lo que ven los demás.
Me encantan esas frases. Me encanta leerte. Pero mucho más me gusta verte.
And then this isn't really related to Gastina, but I just, like, my Luteo heart can't not mention the moment where Mateo is like, don't worry, I'll ask Luna because she tells me the truth. Like, we don't lie to each other. Like, season 1 Luteo really was superior. Anyways, back to Gastina. So now everybody is pressuring Luna to tell them who Felicity is, to the point where Amber puts her on the spot after the next open and telling her that she needs to tell everybody who Felicity is. And so Nina gets up ready to, like, save her friend and tell everybody that she's Felicity, but then Maura and her mom end up clapping so she doesn't have to tell everybody. And so this brings us to the Felicity chase, which I just love with my whole heart. Okay, so basically Luna is in the dressing room with Nina, and then Hasmin overhears them talking about Felicity, and so she comes to the conclusion that Luna is in there with Felicity and tells everybody. And then we also get some really great moments from Simon here, because he's like trying to distract everybody and be like, oh wait, no, I saw Felicity go that way, and it's just great. But it's alright because Luna has a plan, and so she gets Maura to put on the Felicity costume and distract everybody, but now everybody thinks that Maura is Felicity, and just the reaction on poor Gaston's face, there are just no words to describe. And while he was pretty shocked at first, I don't think he ever really bought the whole Maura is Felicity thing, because he comments on her sounding different and looking different and also not having the ring that she was wearing when they were talking on video chat.
No sos la Felicity que conocí, no sos la que escribe los mejores posteos, la que saca las mejores fotos, la que me entiende, la que me alienta, la que lee los mismos libros que yo, escucha la misma música, la que me hace reír incluso hasta cuando estoy mal. No sos esa.
And so the whole Maura is Felicity thing goes on for a few more episodes until Nina finally makes a post as Felicity saying that that is not true, and then we move on. So Gaston continues his investigation using the ring as his guide, as like he said, the ring is muy especial, como ella. That's the best Gaston line, roll the tape.
Qué gracioso estás, te queda muy bien, el papel no es un anillo cualquiera. Es muy especial como ella.
And so Prince Charming goes around checking everybody's hands in school, including Nina's, but the ring is nowhere to be found until later at the roller. Gaston and Nina bump into each other and she drops everything that she was holding, including the ring, and so he finds it. But she's quick to say that, like, that's not hers, don't worry, we can give it to Nico and whoever it is can come and get it. But he's like, no, I know that this is Felicity's ring, don't worry, I'll keep it and so that I can give it back to her myself. This brings us to chapter 5, in which I am calling Gaston catches feelings for Nina, because this is where, in my personal opinion, he starts catching feelings for Nina. And there's a little bit of a build-up to it besides the build-up that we've had for the past like 70 episodes, but we'll go over that quickly first. So first of all, Nina recognizes a book that Gaston is reading and says that she likes it, and then he goes to say a quote from it, and then she ends up finishing his sentence.
Estar enamorado es percibir...
Lo único que hay en cada persona.
Bueno, espero que a ella también le guste.
And then later at school, she has a stack of books, and then he comes and picks one out that he likes. Then we have a scene in which Gaston either realizes his feelings for Nina, or this is where they start. It could be either or. Basically, the two of them cross paths in the park, and she gives him a book that she recommended, and he offers for the 3rd time to help her with school, but this is the first time where she actually accepts his help. He also says something that I just love after Nina calls herself a nerd, kind of like being self-deprecating, but then he goes, I like reading too, and that doesn't make me a nerd. And I'm just like, ugh, I love this boy so very much. Anyways, he then lends her the book that they were talking about earlier, and so Nina is impressed that he actually remembered this exchange, and then he says that they can meet up after she's done reading it and they can talk about it. And then he also says that if she ever like needs help with school or anything, to give him a call. And so like this is when they completely fell in love, and that's great. I'm really happy for them. And then in the next episode, he tells Mateo that he wants to ask Nina to Amber's party because they have so much in common. And so the next time that they talk, he asks if she's going, and she says like, I don't know if I'll be invited. And so he's like, well, I hope that you are going. And then she gets all flustered and drops all of her books, and they share another little moment.
¿Vas a ir al cumple de Amber?
No creo que me invite.
Ojalá que sí. ¿Está bien?
Sí. Gracias.
And then up until this point, he's been talking to Nina about Felicity just like a bunch. They would talk about Felicity all the time, but this is the first time where he catches himself bringing her up and apologizes, proving that he wants to forget about Felicity and be with Nina instead. And this is later proved in the next episode when he basically says just that and asks her out on a little skate date.
Pero te prometo que patinamos despacio. Yo no voy a dejar que nada malo te pase. Vamos.
And then they miss out on seeing Sophia Carson at first because they're off being in love, but then they hear the screams and come over, so it's okay. Chapter 6 is back to the Felicity show because don't worry, that plotline is not over yet. And so in the next episode, Gaston goes to ask Nina to Amber's party, but then he gets nervous and confused about his feelings for Felicity, and so he leaves and ends up asking Felicity to the party instead. But we did still get a really cute moment between the two of them in the kitchen when he sees her and says that she looks really pretty, but then he mentions that he's waiting for Felicity.
Nina.
¿Qué? ¿Tengo algo?
Wow, qué raro verte así tan cambiada con otro peinado y otra ropa.
¿Me queda mal?
No, al contrario, te queda súper bien. Estás muy linda.
So this results in Nina going to Luna's room and she ends up making a post instead. And then Gaston, for some reason, sees this post and recognizes Luna's bedroom, which is just one plot hole in this show that I will never get over, but I'm also like very okay with because of my Luna and Gaston shipping heart as well. But that's a story for another day. And so we all know what happens next. Nina hears footsteps and so she hides behind the door. And then Gaston comes and says like, don't worry, I respect your decision. You can reveal yourself when you're ready. But he still gives her back her ring and invites her to dance and they share their lovely blindfolded dance and it's everything. One of the best moments from this entire show, hands down.
Felicity, ¿estás acá? No salgas. No quiero que te sientas presionada a hacer algo que no querés hacer. Si sentís que todavía no es el momento, prefiero esperar.
And then what does she do in the next episode? That's right, she reaches up and almost takes off the blindfold, but then unfortunately they hear footsteps and she has to scramble to hide, but it's still just such a great moment. And then this brings us to our next park scene where Gaston tells Nina once again how pretty she looked the night before, and he apologizes for going off and being with Felicity and tells her again that he's like really confused about his feelings and that he stresses that she's really special to him as well, as in she is it Nina, not Felicity, even though I guess he's saying that as well because they're the same person. Anyways, this brings Nina to announce after he leaves that she is going to be appearing in the open as Felicity, and then we get this lovely reaction from Gaston. On to chapter 7, which is the post-Felicity for now reveal. So Nina performs in the open and reveals herself as Felicity, and Gaston couldn't be happier. He basically just found out that the two girls he was crushing on just became the same person, and so I don't blame the guy. But unfortunately, this is when things go downhill, because we're only at episode 75, and we can't have these two get together until episode 80, and so in comes Amber. And so Amber wants to keep them apart because, I don't know, she's evil, and so she stops Gaston from going and saying hi after Felicity's performance, and then she shows him a video of Nina that she's edited that make it seem like the fame has gone to her head, and then she makes sure that Nina overhears a conversation that she has with Hasmin where she says that like Gaston was so disappointed after he found out that she was Felicity. And so the two of them are now living in these like alternative realities in which these narratives are correct. They're both just being super stubborn and not really listening to reason. They try to talk to one another but then get lost in translation, but then it all ends up coming full circle when Delphi is the one that ends up helping them out. And so she reassures Nina not to trust any information she's gotten from Amber no matter the circumstance, and how Nina wasn't able to come to that conclusion on her own is beyond me, but I digress. And then when Delphi goes to talk to Hasmin to confirm all the information that she just got from Nina, Gaston overhears Hasmin go over all of the things that Amber has done. And so now our boy is finally ready to get back with Nina and stop being dumb, and so he tries to text her. He sends her numerous messages, but she's not answering any of them as her phone is turned off because she was sick of getting all of these Felicity messages, and she's also headed away on a trip with her dad. And so she's this close to leaving. She's literally in the cab with her dad ready to go when she finally decides to turn on her phone, and she sees the video that Gaston sent to her where he declares his love for her. And so she calls him, they run to one another and meet and kiss, and it's adorable, although Gaston is still wearing that hideous red vest. And so that's the end of season 1. Can you believe it? I can't believe that I just summarized 80 episodes, but I'm ready to do it again with season 2. Let's go. Alright, so moving on to chapter 8, which I call the honeymoon phase. So I feel like a lot of us are in agreement with the fact that season 2 let us down in a lot of regards, and in my own personal opinion, Gastina is one of them. However, I still feel like we did get some decent content from them in the first 10 episodes. Starting out with episode 1 where Gaston surprises Nina with a rose on their first day of school, or their almost kiss in episode 2 where they try to find somewhere where they can kiss where the cameras won't see them, just to end up getting interrupted.
Acá, justo acá.
No, pero sí.
No, Gastón, es que el ángulo de inclinación de la cámara no nos llega a ver.
¿No respiro?
No, quietitos, juntitos, ahí no pasa nada, está todo.
Ok.
Hola, ¿qué tal?
But we get our first actual storyline after Gaston asks Nina to sing with him in the next open, which she says no to at first, but then after he asks a couple more times, and then with the help of Luna, she finally agrees. But then when the time comes, she ends up freaking out in the locker room, and then Nico doesn't give Gaston the chance to actually go and find her, and he makes him go on stage by himself. But then we get a wonderful High School Musical 2-esque moment where Nina surprises Gaston on stage, and they sing Mitad ni Mitad and almost kiss once again. And so this brings us to the Roller Jam plotline, which is honestly one of the best plotlines of season 2, if you ask me. So basically, Gaston wants wants to ask Nina to the roller jam, but she's all nervous because she's not the best skater, and so she gets Luna's help to improve her skating, but she does this all in secret so she can surprise Gaston. But this ends up having him just like being sad because she's always like sneaking around and they aren't spending much time together. But then we get the iconic moment that happens in episode 8 after Gaston stumbles upon Nina after she had just finished practicing, and so she's fumbling to put away her skates, and Gaston gives us this iconic wave, and then they talk for a bit and they make plans to go do something, which makes Nina stand up, realize she has no shoes on. He like wants to hold her bag for her, but she doesn't want him to see the skates, and so she's like, no, I'll hold my bag, and then she's like, here, you can hold my shoes, and so she walks off in her socks, and it's just 10 out of 10.
No me cuesta nada. Está pesadita la mochila que
Sí,
tienes.
no, es que tengo libros. Tengo muchísimos libros, toma. Si querés llevarme los zapatos está bien. ¿Vamos?
Vamos. Pero...
And I kind of wish they didn't ruin the surprise, because he then ends up seeing her and Luna practicing in the park and comes to the conclusion that like she wants to surprise him at the roller jam, and then I guess he does kind of act surprised for like a split second, but I don't know. I feel like they ruined that, and that kind of makes me sad, but it was still a good moment, so I'm okay with it. But now things start to go downhill as chapter 9 is called Oxford. And so up until this point, the show has kind of forgot about them until like episode 22 when Oxford is brought up for the first time. So Gaston is thinking about going on an exchange the next year to Oxford after he graduates, but he's not too sure about it yet because it would mean that he would have to leave Nina behind, but then she ends up finding the enrollment forms, and so they're forced to talk about it. So a couple episodes go by, and then Gaston asks Nina to come to school early, and he tells her that he's made his decision. He wants to stay in Buenos Aires and study there and do an internship with his uncle's company. But she's not too keen on this because she still is a bit worried that he's only doing this for her and risking his future. And then these worries are later confirmed when she overhears Mateo accusing him of doing just that, and so she confronts him about this, and he basically owns up to it, but he's also just like not really seeing a problem in it because, like he said before, his real dream is just to be with her.
No me pongo mal. Es lógico que vos estés pensando en tu futuro, que pienses lo que querés hacer. No sé, ¿cuál es tu mayor sueño?
Mira, mi mayor sueño es estar con vos. Y para siempre.
And so you'd think that that would be the end of it. However, Nina is just really struggling with the anxiety that this decision has put on her and the fear that he will later regret this choice and blame her for it. And so she goes ahead and fills out the enrollment form for him without him knowing. And the show just kind of glosses over this, which is just hilarious to me because I have no idea how she was able to do all this on her own, but maybe she talked to Miss Darbus and she showed her the ways, but either way, what's done is done. And so Nina struggles for a couple episodes to tell Gaston what she's done, but she just can't bring herself to until she overhears that Gaston now knows and thinks that it's his mom who did it, and so that makes her come clean. And so Gaston is extremely upset to find out that Nina did not respect his decision and also lied to him, and so he breaks up with her, saying that he just needs some space. So this brings us to chapter 10, which is the Dark Ages Part 2 Extreme Edition. So they're both basically sad for the next few episodes, like Nina's crying a lot and Gaston keeps talking about how sad he is without her, but he also just can't forget what she did and just feels like something broke between the two of them. And then in comes Xavi, once again. Do you remember him from the first Dark Ages Part 1? Yeah, he's back again, because I guess he's got some sort of like sixth sense that tells him when Nina's just recently gotten out of a relationship or something. I don't know, but he's back. And so he texts her, and then he just like shows up at the next competition, but then Nina is in a rush, and so she just like quickly hugs him and runs away. But then Gaston sees this, and then he gets all sad. And then we have a string of events in which Gaston overhears conversations about Xavi and thinks that Nina likes him, and then he'll go to talk to Nina, but then Xavi will interrupt. But all of this leads to Mateo telling Gaston that if he really loves Nina, like he's got to risk it for her and do something big just like he did with Luna. And so Gaston's like, you're right, I'm gonna do that. And so what's Gaston's grand idea? Asking her for help with his essay, which is kind of lame. But I'm also like, I get it, they're both like kind of nerdy, so maybe that was like a cute thing for them, but I'm just like, come on Gaston, I do not think that's what Mateo meant. But we did end up getting a really cute scene in the middle of all of this in which Nina tries to tell Gaston how she's feeling, but then she gets interrupted, and so then later on Gaston is like, hey, what were you trying to tell me before? And she's like, oh, don't worry, it wasn't important. And he's like, it's important to me, Nina, and I died right then and there. Then episode 49 comes, in which Gaston tries to ask out Nina, but then guess who comes and interrupts them? That's right, Mr. Xavi, here to ruin everything. But then we actually end up getting a really nice exchange between the two of them, in which Gaston turns into like protector mode, and he interrupts Nina when she goes to introduce him and says like, I'm her ex-boyfriend. Is super short with Xavi, asking him when he's leaving, and it was just a great exchange overall.
Y bueno, Gastón es un gran patinador.
Soy su exnovio.
Ah, sí, su exnovio. Nina me ha hablado mucho de ti.
Ah, ¿te habló mucho de mí?
Sí.
Mirá que bueno, de vos no me contó nada, no sé ni quién sos.
But then we have the next roller jam, which actually started out pretty good. Like they have a little moment when Nina skates in where they stare at each other, but then he later sees her and Xavi in the locker rooms very close, almost like they're about to kiss, and he leaves before he gets to see Nina shut him down. All of that being said though, things are actually looking up for Gastina now because Xavi's gone and Nina's ready to confess her feelings, but oh, guess who's back now? That's right, Floor. And so Nina sees them and gets sad, and so basically the show was like, let's pull an Uno reverse card on them, because why not? But it actually wasn't nearly as bad as the Xavi situation because the Floor thing ended pretty quickly, so that was good. This brings us to chapter 11, in which I am calling okay fine, they can be together again since the season is almost over. So Nina makes a post on her Felicity account about their situation, which leads Gaston to reply to it as roller track, and so they share an awkward but cute wave in response to this, and then the show suddenly remembers that it's a musical and has Gaston just start singing to Nina in the middle of the cafe, which was the most cringy but also wonderful experience because it's Gastina.
Estamos tan cerca y todo da vueltas. Acércate a mí, por favor.
And so they clear up the whole Floor situation. He asks her out, and so they go and do that. And on the date, they talk about how they both know what they want, which is each other, and then they finally share their first kiss of the season.
Yo no estoy para nada confundido. Sé muy bien qué es lo que quiero.
Sí, yo sé a quién quiero y siempre lo supe.
And then a couple episodes later, we find out that Gaston has decided to go to Oxford, but it's okay because they talk about it and agree that they can still stay together. And then the show pulls another Uno reverse card and has Gaston submit some of Felicity's work to this website who is holding a contest to find out who is going to be their next editor, and that's a website that Nina really likes. And then here comes the exchange program plotline, which just the thought of grinds my gears, but we'll get into it. So Nina goes ahead and finds this exchange program that Oxford offers in which she can go and finish her last year of school nearby where Gaston will be studying. And so she thinks this would be a great opportunity for her. You know, she gets the experience of going and living in another country for a year. She can also improve her English while she's at it and all of that. And then also, not to mention, Gaston is nearby, and so that's a big plus. And so she tries to convince her mom to let her go, but to no avail because it's Anna we're talking about. And then in comes Ricardo because he's been gone for like the entirety of this season living in Miami, but he's back now and he's all for Nina studying abroad, but Anna is still just not convinced. Which brings us to probably my favorite Gaston moment in this entire series, besides maybe the IKEA Stoy dance, but this is when Gaston goes to Nina's parents' house and convinces them to let her go. And what I love so much about this exchange is that he doesn't just like go there and be all whiny, like, I love Nina, we need to be together, like, we're so in love, you can't separate us. No, he's smart about it. He's like, you guys know Nina just as well as I do, and you know that she doesn't just like make decisions like this on a whim. Like, if she wants to go, it's because she's thought it through and she knows what she wants. And they're both like, yeah, you're right, she is like that. But Anna's still like not 100% sure, and so Gaston's like, don't worry, like, I'll be there, I can protect her, I can look after her. And I'm just like, ugh, I love this scene so much, and I love this man with my whole heart. Well, I guess he's not a man, he's a boy, but you guys know what I mean. And so Nina's parents decide to let her go, and this got me thinking, like, if this actually did happen, would I have been okay with Nina not being in season 3 if it would have meant that she was canonically with Gaston in the end? And I feel like I would have been. Like, to be honest, Nina didn't really do that much in the 3rd season, and I still feel like even if she did go to Oxford with Gaston, I don't think she would have needed to not be in the 3rd season as well. They could have done like a Josh from the Lodge situation in which she communicates with Luna through video chat and could have had her visit a bunch. Like, I don't know, I just feel like it makes me so sad to know that they had this plotline like right there. They made us go through this for like 10 episodes just to take them away in the end anyways. But back to the story, remember that little contest that Gaston submitted on behalf of Nina? Yeah, turns out she won that contest, and so if she wants to accept this position, she has to stay in Buenos Aires, and so she decides to do that. But at least when she finds out that Gaston sent it without her consent, she says it's a very beautiful gesture. I mean, who knows if she actually does feel that way or she's just saying that because she did the exact same thing, but either way, at least she's not mad about it. This brings us to our final chapter, so feel free to grab your tissues now because this one is called The Downfall of Gastina. And so now we travel to Cancun for the Rotafest finals, in which Gaston and Nina write their names in the sand, and Gaston is sad, saying that no matter how many times they write their names in the sand, the waves will always wash their names away. But Nina reassures him by telling him about this legend that says that the sea doesn't wash them away, it saves their names, and that if it is true love, then one day the waves will return their names so they can meet again, and then they suck face. And you can tell that this is not the first take in which they've kissed because Gaston has lipstick on his chin, but I guess that's kind of irrelevant. And so that's the end of season 2, and you may be thinking, oh, that's kind of a nice ending, let's just stop there. Yeah, I'm not going to, because it's not over yet. So season 3 starts with Nina waiting on a call from Gaston, or waiting to call Gaston. I'm not really too sure, it's kind of unclear. Then in episode 3, she receives a gift from him and suddenly doesn't know how to open a package. But it is a book of romantic legends along with a blue ribbon, and then he explains that one of the legends in the book says that when two people are meant to be, they're tied together by a blue ribbon, and he shows that he's wearing his half on his wrist. And this is something that I will simply never get over, and it's the fact that from this point on, every time we see Gaston, he is wearing the blue ribbon, but Nina never does. Not once. Like, they couldn't at least have her wear it up until episode 11? Like, maybe that was the real reason why he dumped her, because she never wore the blue ribbon. But I love the ribbon scene, and it just makes me so mad that they gave us that scene just to take them away from us so quickly after. Anyways, Gaston then gets Mateo to leave a rose for Nina on her locker, possibly referencing the start of season 2, but then Delphi gets it into Nina's head that Eric is the one who left it for her, and as far as I know, I don't think Nina ever finds out that Gaston was actually the one who left it, and that just makes me so incredibly mad. Then we get to episode 10, in which Nina is walking around being sad about Gaston, and then she happens to see their names written in the sand, and then in comes her man, pulling a BM moment, doing the heart shape with his hands, and then they meet and share a kiss. But then none of this even matters, because then they come back to the same spot in the next episode, and Gaston tells Nina that his program is going to be lasting for longer than a year now, and he tries to get her to come to London with him after this year or something, but she's like, no, I'd rather we just stay like long distance, I don't want to leave. And then he's like, well, I don't want to do long distance, we're both suffering too much and this is just too hard on both of us. And I'm just like, is it though? Because you seem perfectly fine and Nina is the one crying. And so he breaks up with her and leaves.
Gastón, ¿vos pensás que por más de que no nos veamos por muchos años y que no hablemos, el mar va a guardar nuestros nombres?
Yo creo que sí lo va a guardar por siempre.
And that's it. That's how they end this relationship that they've been developing for over 200 episodes. That is the ending we got. They just toss it to the wind because who cares? We'll give her another boy. It's okay. No, Disney. It's not okay. Do you see me right now? Do I seem okay? Because I'm not. And so while that is the last physical appearance we have of Gaston, Nina still has a lot of flashbacks with him in it throughout the rest of the season. And then in episode 59, he calls her and asks how she's doing and asks if she's dating anybody. And she says she's with Eric, and he's like, that's great, I'm really happy for you. And they continue on as friends, even though they haven't been talking for the past 40 episodes, so where this friendship came from is unknown to me. And so that's the Gastina story. I hate to end it like this, but that's how it ends, not my fault. And that's why their story is so heartbreaking, because they did not deserve to end like that. They deserved so much more. And I mean, you could pretend that their story ends after season 2, but I also just love the whole ribbon exchange, and like, I personally feel like once Oxford was brought into the picture, it was all downhill from there. And so yeah, that's the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if this is something you enjoyed and you want to see more of. Like I said at the beginning of this video, let me know which ship you'd like to see me cover next. Anyways, Cater Tots, that is all I've saved for today. Hope you'll have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you very, very soon. You hear that? We're gonna crush this video. It's gonna be great. I'm super excited. And guess who doesn't have to do an ad read? This girl.